Good morning. We are at one of my favorite little camping spots in the back of Lake Siskiyou. So we got to the top of Highway 5. Well, not the top, but we got a good ways up it. Here's yesterday's finds. Let's look at this in the sunshine, and then we'll start today's video for sure. So if you didn't catch that one, be sure that you check it out. That was the first video on this road trip that we're on. You don't have to watch them together, but then you'll know where I found that. Today, let me get my coffee on, and then we'll do that. Here's coffee time. Okay, I have a special little treat for you. We're going to an 1800s resort that is now basically a ghost town. We're outside Shasta City in Upper California. So we are hiking out to it, to Ney Springs. And I see roads going all over the hills out here. I'm assuming they're probably logging roads. Everything is just melting snow out here. There is still snow in patches all around us. A spring is an underground stream, basically. A flow of water that's been traveling underground, usually from an uphill source to a downhill spot where it is revealed. Usually an embankment, a canyon, a cut, some sort of geography which allows the water to break free to the surface again and then become a surface flow, and then we identify that spot as a spring. They can vary in size from something that might only flow once a year during heavy wet seasons to something that can continuously dump water year-round. This is a spring right here. Stinks like sulfur. Has that heavy sulfur smell. These springs in this area are what's referred to as mineral springs. Mineral springs are springs where the water that's produced from the ground has a content of dissolved particles in it, usually from the minerals, from the different types of rock that it has flowed through while it was traveling underground, and it dissolves some of these and carries it with it. And so, because of the different therapeutic values that are associated with the minerals in the water, these different springs have been sought out all throughout time in the different parts of the world for their healing attributes and restorative abilities. This was a resort where you would come and taste water in the late 1800s. The west coast of America had a lot of that as their tourism industry. And this is one of the first structures here that you come upon, but just to impress upon you the depth of this canyon and how they took the stone, and there would be no flat spot if it wasn't for the human work here. So everything is retainment. This looks like some sort of stove works. And if you notice over here, literally look at the steepness of this hillside coming down. And just the road, and then whatever they could stack. And this is actually slid down over it and like a landslide and buried this wall, but you'll see that it actually continued all the way down here. So I imagine this was actually maybe the interior of a building. Or it was a flat spot where there was little buildings, or it was just outside workings. I'm assuming there was probably a big, long building here. But yeah, just the natural rock stacked up. And these are huge boulders of the hill which were incorporated. And this is just slid over it, obscuring it, so you can see the wall dive into it here. And then be re-revealed here again, so if you can picture this whole thing as a solid wall. Of course, with no trees growing through it all. So the trees that you're seeing are all grown here since this was made. So that's how long ago this was made. Long enough ago for all of the trees to grow back. That's all stacked mason work there. Still, from way back there, all the way down, incorporating the big natural rocks again, and then looking at the steepness of this and what they were holding back. There's literally springs coming out of right here. Everything is in that form where it's just coming out from under the snow and flattened down and needs to stand back up. So most of the greenery is pressed flat. It was literally just under snow. Look at the horsetails. I see a little trough behind here. That must be where the spring is. And then it comes out of here. See how it's stacked rock. There's so much water flowing out of that it actually runs down. This section here where the wall has collapsed away. It's broken right here, and so the water is seeping out of the earth. And you can tell that it was mostly funneled down here originally. And that's the flow of the spring. When the sunlight is shining in here because of the sulfurs and stuff, the algae that's in here actually has a purple blue hue to it, which I don't know, it's not really picking up right now, but there's the overall spring box. And I don't know if you can tell, but this has the slightest little sweep to it, just a hard corner. And then, I mean, that's beautiful mason work. This is just all chinked in. I do see a little bit of mortar in here, so it's not cold stacked, and that's probably why this section lasted longer and is held together. And you can see there's just a bunch more finer chink work and cement. It might have even been restored, and as opposed to the loose cold stacking. That's how far down this runs, is beyond the forks of those far trees there. Open. Uh-oh. Shall we open? It says open me. We usually have to do whatever the instructions say. I see cement poured here in a line, and then tree roots growing to either side. So that's been there a while, but then again, so have the trees. John Ney discovered the springs in 1887, and within just a few years the resort had been built. As its popularity grew to its height, a hotel was built that could hold up to 50 people, which was quite large for its time. It also had a bathhouse, a bunch of other outbuildings which have now disappeared into the landscape so much that no one is sure how many of them there were or what they were used for. Definitely a barn and a carriage house. And you can still to this day see structures which I can identify as cisterns, which are smaller containers which you would pipe the water to and then hold it as storage for later on, just basically like a water tank. And in other reports that I read, and walking up and down the creek myself, you can see that there was different walkways and pathways and platforms and wooden structures probably that extended at least across the creek in a few spots and may have zigzagged down and up it for access to the water. So you can see the spring coming out of the hillside here, running down into an upper spring box, and then out and off and away. Go up the road a bit, and directly down from the spring looks like where more of a minerally spring was. You can smell it. There's a little fork down. See the wall, the upper road. All the trees have to get their leaves back. They're just in bud for now. So you won't be able to see the far side of the canyon soon. This is a pretty special look up it through the trees. You can see the extent of stacking that was here, and I'm sure that there was more of the wood structure originally. But just seep after seep coming through the ground. Get this tree. Growing out of the wall. stacked. See the stacked front wall on this, like a deeper foot bath, stairs coming up right into the water. And this is snow fed. Looks like this a lot of the year. And you can see that was all actually cemented in and a little dam. So I think that at one point this was more dammed off and they probably hauled rock out of here constantly to do all this building and retainment. So I imagine it was a little bit deeper than this at one time. Mineral coming out of this water. It's actually building up that fine layers of what could almost be like its own mineral someday, its own stone, like travertine. Looks like you can see where a dam went farther across all this, and that's all that's left because these big boulders slamming down. But there may have been a lower dam. It would make sense for this to be like a pool. And then rivers can really quickly fill stuff in. That's what they do. The Ney mineral springs are extremely rich with minerals. It is super silica rich spring water, and it has a pH of 11.6 and a silica content of 4,000 parts per million, the highest values known to occur in natural groundwaters, whereas your average mineral spring is generally one that contains a reading of around 400 parts per million of total dissolved solids. So Ney Springs contains 10 times that. I almost put my GoPro in this, and it is like pure demon juice. Woo! It is pure sulfur. It's amazing that can be such a sulfur pit. You can literally see it bubbling up. By sulfur, I mean it's just mineral water that is infused with the stink of sulfur. And those bubbles are really how active it is. and I put my finger in there, and now my finger is something nasty. So I almost plunged the GoPro in there, and whoo! No, that's bad. Okay, so now decisions. Do we want to walk up and see if we can make it to the waterfall that's up there before sundown without a coat? Yes, I think that would be fine. I drove most of the way up because I have my truck, so it'll be okay.